welcome, welcome. We will also be playing a game, and Miss Shannon and I were just talking about we should have done swipe left, swipe right, but didn't think about that until today. But first, I wanted to start with introductions. I'm going to let our panel introduce themselves. We'll start with Carson. As an intro, let's hear a little bit, like your short blurb of your startup story.
All right. My short blurb of my startup story here. So I'm currently co-founder at Monoline. But my story goes back about 20 years. Started a company called Sports Engine with Justin Koffenberg and Greg Blasco and Mike Lewis, and we grew that here in the Twin Cities, and we were acquired by NBC Universal in 2016. We spent 36 months transitioning from there, and on the back end of that, teamed up with Greg Blasco again and a couple of other guys in the insurance space and started a company called OpenTrack. And that was acquired in 2022, and now Greg and I and Jared and Ben are doing Monoline. So that's kind of the third piece of that. Started angel investing in about 2018, and kind of bringing that different perspective from both sides.
Cool. Awesome. I love that. Casey.
Hi, Casey Worrell of Fusion Hill. My business partner, Carrie Sarnoski, and I started our company, Service Agency, doing research, strategy, and creative 20 years ago. And our story actually starts with being approached by investors to start something new, which I don't think happens very often. And we were lucky enough to be targeted, to start an agency. And we said, thank you very much for that idea. We will take it and run and find our own money. So we've been running our agency for that time. When we started, it was a big risk, but we had a great idea for a new model within our agency. Carrie was sole breadwinner in her family, as was I, and I was 9 months pregnant. And here we are today, continuing to run the agency and now flipping to focus on angel investing.
Oh my goodness, 9 months pregnant. The power of women. Also, you have 4 female founders that you've invested in here?
Yes. Raise your hand if I've invested in you. There they are. Awesome
Amazing.
Women.
And Derek.
Hello, I'm Derek Rucker, co-founder of StoryForge. But before that, one of the co-founders of Carrot Health. I see Steve out there in the audience. Steve Sigmund, also one of my co-founders, Kurt Waltenbaugh, and Juan Chung. That was started in 2015. We exited in August of 2021. It took me a little while, actually, to get the whole entrepreneurship bug. I tried the more traditional approach for about 15 years. Didn't really take. And I realized that I knew where I was going to end up if I kept on that path, and took a left turn and never looked back. Been angel investing really for about 7 years or so now, well before the Carrot Health exit. But with Carrot Health providing a bit of a liquidity event, Diane and I have increased our angel investments quite a bit in the Minnesota community. So happy to be here.
Amazing. Thank you all for being here. Okay, so this is the game. Should have been swipe left, swipe right, but instead we're doing stoplight. So putting your founders hats on for this game, you're gonna say green light for things that angels should start to do, yellow light for things that they should keep doing, and then red light for things that they should stop doing. And when we split the panel is when we'll dive in a little bit deeper and kind of see what your thoughts are on that. So the first one, invest based on industry trends. And you can all kind of answer and then
We're doing green. Are we all answering green?
I don't know. You have to tell me. Is it red,
yellow,
green,
I'd
yellow?
say.
Yellow?
Yellow.
Yellow?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the group here. We're going to pick yellow.
Okay. That's all that needs to be said. Cold calls.
Red.
Yeah, red.
Red.
Okay. All on the same page. Relying on gut instinct when choosing your investments.
Yellow.
Green.
Yellow.
Okay, Casey, you're the outlier. Why green?
I think it was one of the last panelists that just said you kind of know in your gut you're at this stage investing in the person, and so it's really do I believe in that person, and I should be able to get a pretty quick read.
Okay. And Derek, why'd you say yellow?
I mean, first impressions aren't always entirely correct. I've met founders who I'm like, oh man, this person is all that. And then over the course of, subsequent meetings, you're like, yeah, all flash or all sizzle and no substance there. So I do try to mix it up. Some of the first impression is definitely valid, but that's not all there is to it. You got to look under the hood.
Carson?
So I'm kind of an optimist just by nature in the way that I look at things. And so I understand that about myself. So when it comes to angel investing, I always try and at least bounce it off of a couple of other people that I know, just to make sure the things that I'm seeing actually align to their perspective. I think that's really important for me personally.
Makes sense. Also very interesting to me that the woman on the panel picked green and the men picked yellow. I don't know. Just something to think about. Sweat equity.
Yellow.
Green.
Green.
Okay. So Derek, why yellow?
Because I actually do prefer founding teams where the founders have cash equity in there as well. If you get a founder that's just looking to found for sweat equity and on someone else's dime, that's a bit of a red flag for me. So yeah, sweat equity is great, but not in and of itself. It should be combined.
Okay. Casey?
I think it should be sweat and money for both sides. I really feel like the founder needs to have money and, of course, their time. And I think investors should also put their time and their money at the front.
Carson, I see you nodding your head. Similar sentiments?
Yeah, I feel the same way about that. I think like the grit that someone has, and if they can showcase that they're fighting for it and that it's so important to them personally, I think that's the piece of it as well.
There's one other thing too. When it comes to cash equity, it depends on the founder and how much capability they have to invest. Right? I want to see skin in the game, but a founder that can invest, $1 million in their venture may still not have as much skin in the game as someone that put 10,000 in if they're not coming from, resources. So it's got to be proportional.
Totally. That makes sense. All right, next one. Diversify investment portfolio.
Yes.
Green?
Green.
Green? Heavy green.
Green.
I'm going to go yellow.
Ooh, okay. Tell us why.
Okay, so I think it's so important that you understand the investments that you're making on a very, very deep level. And so that's kind of why I'm thinking about that. Something may appear like an awesome opportunity, but unless you understand like the nuances and the intricacies of that like specific business and market at least at a basic level, that's why I say, I guess, keep that a little bit more focused. Now, I think, yes, absolutely diversify, but make sure it's in space that you know very deeply.
Is there an instance in which you would want to learn about a new space because of an investment?
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to require more work on the diligence side of things and probably more time than maybe the founder is looking to give you based on how quickly they need to close their round. But yeah, if it's something that interests you, definitely you're diving into that, and it might not be that particular investment, but maybe one that comes up in the future.
Totally. And Derek, you were a heavy green.
Well, I think it, to some extent, comes down to your investment thesis. Diane and I are very much focused on a regional ecosystem, and so we're looking for investments in Minnesota, and to a lesser extent, the Midwest. That does mean we end up being a bit more generalist, weighted towards the strengths of the Minnesota region. Which perhaps introduces a little bit more risk to our portfolio, but we're okay with that because that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to both, make money and affect regional change at the same time.
Yeah, and we'll talk about our investing North Stars later in the conversation, so I think we can touch on that again later. Casey, anything to add?
There are lots of different ways to diversify your portfolio. We have modeled, and when I say we, so I do all of my investments with my business partner, and I think that's a great piece of advice, and learning to have somebody else that thinks differently from you, but is just as invested as you are in the decisions that you're making. So at our business at Fusion Hill, we're diversified in the disciplines, the services that we offer to clients, and then the industries. We serve healthcare, financial services, and tech. And that's actually how we also invest, is in those areas. So that's how we're diversifying, but it's all also aligned with what we're knowledgeable in.
Totally. Okay, we'll do two more. Networking.
Oh, solid green.
Solid green.
Green.
Yellow.
Again, okay.
So there's two different perspectives, right? So thinking about it like from a founder's perspective first, I would say it's kind of a slippery slope of trying to go out and just network. And you're trying to balance that with high impact work and really high impact connections. So when I'm saying that, it's instead of just spreading yourself super, super thin, it's being very kind of specific and thoughtful about where you're making those connections and how you're using that networking energy. And I think that actually bodes pretty well on the flip side as an angel investor, because you can totally get yourself, completely overwhelmed unless you're being really, really thoughtful with those connections that you're making and investing time and energy in.
Totally makes sense. Casey?
I don't have anything to add.
Oh, awesome. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Be available for founders 24/7.
Red.
Nope.
Red.
How did I know that was going to be the answer? Okay, so that concludes our game. I guess we couldn't really have done a left swipe, right swipe. We needed the yellow a lot in that conversation, so I'm glad we had that. All right, so our next section, we're going to talk a lot about relationships and the relationship between founders and angels. In the By the Numbers, we talked a little bit about familial and friend investments. And during our prep call, we talked about some of those were all of your first investments. Tell me a little bit about the dynamic of what that looked like for you as founders. We'll start with you, Carson.
So both my parents were teachers, and so didn't really come from a place where they had a lot of capital available to invest in their son's idea in college. So as we initially bootstrapped and then came to like the first round of fundraising, I told my dad, I'm like, well, this is what we're doing in our plan, just kind of keeping him in the loop. And he said, well, your mom and I want to invest. And initially, that's pretty profound to hear that from your parents. They believe in what you're doing, but it's also incredibly horrifying as well. If you let your parents put money in, that's raising it to a totally, totally new level. But he was relentless. And so my parents were some of the early investors in Sports Engine. And I can tell you that probably the most memorable conversation of like my professional life or my life in general was being able to sit down with my parents as they were getting ready for retirement and letting them know that we were going to sell Sports Engine and it was going to be absolutely life-changing for them. Just gives me goosebumps today, to think back and remember that.
That had to have been a very proud moment for them as well, even though like the money was there, but just a proud moment as parents.
That's the good stuff, right? The relationship piece of it where you're connecting with people and there's a really positive monetary outcome, but it's so much more than that makes it worth doing. Yeah.
And Casey, you had mentioned that, was it your brother invested or your brother-in-law invested in you and now you just returned the investment?
That's right. So things come full circle. So as I mentioned, we had these outside investors. We did not know them from Adam. And it's hard because as a founder, you don't know who you're attaching yourself to. So I had run the business plan past my brother, who was CFO for my parents' company at the time. And he said, well, wait a second. I didn't think you'd ever leave your job. Would you consider an investment from us? And yes, no. Does this mean we have to talk about this at Sunday dinner every week? But implicit trust is so important with your investors, and having, I knew that they were investing in us not only because they believed in me and my business partner, but they wanted us to do well. They wanted us to succeed. And so we knew it wasn't totally a money play, although I've been told I'm a good investment. But it was definitely like they wanted to make sure that we were set up for success. And then, yes, 20 years later, I am invested in Melody Health, which my sister-in-law, Sarah, and my brother, Kai, have founded.
Amazing. And Derek, you have a unique situation because now you're working with your daughter.
Well, that's actually true. So part of the funds that we had set aside for my daughter Sabrina have been put into StoryForge, and so literally her future starter house is invested in our enterprise. So yeah, I don't want to let her down. I have an interesting relationship with family funding. My dad is incredibly supportive of entrepreneurship and investing, and takes my advice on what he should invest in with everything except my own venture. And at the moment that I pitch my own venture to him, he becomes the most freaking skeptical person on the planet. I mean, I'm sure that I just de-age about 45 years. And he sees a little 7-year-old in front of him going, "Daddy, I want money for my popsicle stand." And I've never been able to get any money out of him. And I'm not really sure I want to.
All right, so outside of close relationships investing, when you were early in your startups, what were you looking for in investors? And was there any specifics with regards to the type of relationship you wanted with those investors? We can start with you, Casey.
Yeah, we were so fortunate because our investors had started their own business. They were founder mindset and were pretty advanced in years and seasoned in their industry. And that business was tangential to ours, so product development. So not the same as design or research and strategy, but industry expertise, understanding how companies buy, how to make introductions. But I'll say the most important things that they gave us, which I think this is a very unique model, is they actually extended their back office to us. And so we had their IT person, their front desk, their all of our billings, our receivables, payables were taken on. That was part of the investment that they gave to us, was service hours. So it just really allowed us to run and do what we were good at and not get mired down in that administration.
Yeah, that's a really nice leg up to start off. Derek, what about you?
Yeah, I think that you bring up a really good point about having in-kind sort of payments as well, or services. At Carrot Health, we didn't have very many investors that weren't the founders and employees, but we did have Treehouse Health, who provided us a space for 2 years, and that was a pretty big deal. We had a home. We'd been pretty itinerant prior to that, and being able to have a location and that support was very, very timely, and I think that was a very helpful investment.
So angels, if you have a space, apparently that's a really important thing for early stage startups. And Carson?
Yeah, so for us in 2007, the big thing we were looking for is just money.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was a very, very difficult time to be going out and trying to raise any sort of money. We were fortunate that we had bootstrapped the company to a place where we were barely profitable, but enough to kind of keep things rolling. So we didn't have like a hard deadline to raise money. And then honestly, we just got lucky with the angels that were there, early on. They were huge advocates of us. They were generous with their time, made incredible connections for us, and kind of kept us going on our way. So in that regards, we were very, very fortunate with those first sports engine angels.
You said the word lucky. How, for all of you, does luck have anything to do with it?
Definitely. And anyone that says otherwise is fooling themselves.
Yeah, Casey?
We had, the Strib did an article just right after we launched, and the headline was "Lucky Duo Strikes Out," or something to that. So we are the lucky duo. We'd like to assume we have some strategy and some savvy, but yeah, I think luck has a lot. Right place, right time.
Yeah. And Carson, going back kind of those early days, keeping in mind we're tailoring this conversation to early on, let's talk about exits. How did you think about your investors as you were laying the groundwork for your exit?
Yeah, I don't know how much forethought was put into that. I mean, it was such a, you look at over a decade, and anything that we thought really early on probably didn't play out the way that we thought it would. But I think just like respect and alignment along the way, because everything evolves, whether it's your business or your funding needs or the general environment, all of those pieces over the trajectory of your business are going to be so different. And so when I look back at it, it's like, well, let's find those individuals who we want to work with, who we enjoy spending time with, and who we respect and trust, right? It's like those basic foundational relationships things that, I mean, they're so important regardless of what you're doing. And I think finding a partner in those angel investors is something to shoot for.
Yeah. And Derek, what about you at the beginning stages? Maybe let's say Carrot Health.
Well, in terms of the Carrot Health exit, Steve did so much of the heavy lifting. I really was, did so much less that I really don't feel like I can speak to it all that well. But it was a very well-structured exit. But I've heard time and time again from founders who get to a point where they're ready to sell, or they've been approached by someone and their guard goes down. They're excited. This is the moment. This is your liquidity event. It's all going to come home, and now I'm going to be rich. That's when you need to have your guard up the most, right? That's when this can all come apart. So instead of feeling like you've achieved it when you start to have those exit negotiations, no, that's not the home stretch. You're starting on an entirely different marathon now. Be smart. Get help. Get someone that knows the ropes on your side, and don't make a mistake that you're going to be kicking yourself for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Casey, you haven't exited, but are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so no, we have not exited, and very strategically have stayed in the business. But from the very beginning, we were thinking about how to exit our investors. And so it's a different model, but our goal was to pay them out dividends as they went, and then be able to buy back. And that was really critical, that we make sure our investor was okay with that they would release and give up shares. And we were able to fast track that. I think we did it within 4 years, so that we were 100% owned. So just our percentage went down. So a little different than a lot of the conversations we're talking about today with exits, but needed a lot of strategy and conversation up front.
Oh, absolutely. And Derek, you were talking about the exit is like that exciting moment. that you need to be careful around. But hindsight's 2020. Are there any other like foundational elements or landmines that you would suggest people look out for?
Well, yeah. I mean, right before the first big sale, right where you haven't proven it yet, you think you got something, but you're not sure. The temptation is to quit a little bit too early, and the frustration's high in the founding team. You're sitting there going, "Well, are we just fooling ourselves, right? Do we need to go and get a day job?" And my advice to you at that point is, you know what, stick with it just a bit longer. Give it another 6 to 9 months. You can do this and keep the energy up, because you put that much effort into it. You may just be very close to that inflection point and not even know it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Carson, what about you? Any recommendations? Hindsight's 2020.
So from a founder's perspective, what has been great about the companies that I've been a part of is the team that I'm working alongside. Instead of like just a founder, it's been a group of co-founders, and we each have different skill sets, different perspectives, and luckily we each have bad days on different days. And I think that's been huge along the way, is when you get down on yourself, if you have someone who's going through that exact same thing that can kind of pick you up along the way, that is so, so valuable. And I can't even count the number of times that, with my co-founding groups that we've, been through that and picked each other up, and you live to see another day. And, you're just trying to get to that inflection point. But having a great team surrounding you along the way is incredibly valuable.
Going back to the relationships conversation across the board. Casey, what about you? Like, I know it's not an exit model, but like, what would your recommendation be, knowing that you had a unique model and how you approached it?
Well, I just think starting with the end in mind is always the goal. So my business partner, Carrie, is really, really good about just on day-to-day things and big picture things, asking, what do we want to get out of this? What is the goal? It's easier when you've got that laid out, and so having that up front and then having that as your guiding star is important.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump to the investor side of things. You all have talked about how there are those days when it's really, really hard. The startup thing is very difficult. What gave you the confidence to want to be an investor, knowing how difficult it is and knowing that you're investing in founders that are going to be going through that mud in the same way that you did? Or is there a moment in time that you made that decision? Maybe Derek, we'll start with you.
I mean, in how many other places in your life can you really say, look, we're funding the future. We're making a difference in what tomorrow is going to look like, both in the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the region, but also in the goods, the services, the companies that are going to change the world tomorrow. I feel like this is a privilege, and this is some of the coolest stuff I've ever done, both being an entrepreneur and being an angel investor. And it's scary as shit, but I wouldn't do anything else.
Totally. And Casey?
Yeah, same vein. I would say this whole journey of starting a business, owning a business, running it has been a total blessing. And the blessings that have come from that, I want to give right back. So really, it's a pay it forward strategy. My success came from the people whose shoulders I stood on, and I want to be that for the next, especially female and BIPOC founders.
Love it. Carson?
Yeah, all of that and then some. It's awesome. My experience has been very much wanting to give back as well, I think, but it's been inspired by the real world scenarios that we went through very early on. I mean, this community, the Twin Cities tech community, rallied around Sports Engine so much. And the people that, were on our team and just pushing it forward, being a part of that and seeing the impact it made on our outcome, you get on the other side of it, and you just want to kind of continue that, because those relationships are what matter. And I think it's honestly just a lot of fun to be part of that momentum when you see that positive change within the community, and you see other successes and events like this that, you rewind 10 years ago did not exist at all, and now there's this groundswell that's pushing this community forward. To be a part of that, I think is really fun.
Was there anything you weren't expecting or any surprises when sitting on the other side of the table as an investor this time around, Carson?
Yeah, I mean, there's founders are very diverse in the way that they see the world, and they see solutions and kind of their own talents. And so I have my own perspective, and I've kind of gone through it. And so the way that I see things and how I think they're going to unfold, I kind of just have to check that at the door a little bit and be more open to somebody's different perspective that could be absolutely right for the problem that they're trying to solve.
Totally. Casey, did you get surprised by anything?
Yeah, I think every entrepreneur has the next business in mind, and that you kind of get an itch that if you get too settled, you just kind of can't live with yourself. But I don't know that I'm ready to go start the next and the next and the next. There are some people that are really good at that, but investing in somebody else's journey kind of scratches that itch for me. And it's so inspiring because you feel like you're a part of it. You are a part of it. And so your passion and your energy can go through that channel without spending 400 hours of your own time a week.
Yeah, makes sense. Derek?
I think one of the things that I've found really interesting, kind of looking at it from the angel investing side after having been an entrepreneur, is that, every founding team is very different. And that, but when you start seeing them and interviewing them, it's like, wow, everyone's coming at this from a different place, with a different vision, a different set of strengths. And that's really neat to see. And it also gives an opportunity for, investors to provide guidance and mentorship sometimes. It also provides an opportunity for investors to learn from the founding teams as well, because some of them are experts in areas I know almost nothing about. And I find that just fascinating. So I think it's just a constant learning, and it's really interesting to see the dynamics and the personalities at play.
And unanimously during our prep call, you all said this is not all about the return. It's about your investing North Star. Casey, what is your investing North Star?
Impact. So the companies that we're investing in do have that, are very missional. Most of them are very focused on bettering someone's life, making a better world. And so I know that my investment dollars are certainly going to help that founder's world and then their community, but their visions are really impacting such a bigger space than that. So that's exciting.
Carson?
Yeah, they have to have the opportunity for impact, obviously on the financial side, but a positive impact, a big opportunity for positive impact beyond that. And then kind of the third piece for me is just asking myself, can I bring value beyond just money? And do I have the capacity to hopefully make an impact with this group that I'm going to be putting funds into their organization? So I think those are the three primary things.
And Derek, you mentioned being in Minnesota is a big item for you.
Yeah, Diane and I are very regionally focused. Obviously, we want to make the world a better place and have impact investing as well. But when it comes to it, our North Star, as it were, is Minnesota. We want to improve the entrepreneurial ecosystem here, and the first and foremost way to do that is to provide funds for entrepreneurs here.
What do you wish more founders understood as an investor? Derek?
If we say no, it isn't because we don't like you or your idea sucks.
Love that. Casey?
I don't want to hear just the good news. I want to hear the good news, but I want to know how I can help. So I want to know what the challenges are. I want to know what you're struggling with. I want to know the real deal, because there's potential that I can help or my network can help, and then we'll all win.
Is there a way you encourage founders to come to you with not only good news?
Well, I think that's part of the relationship, right? And I think the relationships that I'm fostering with my founders are pretty deep. And so hopefully I am a safe place and not a judgmental place. And I hope that they all know that I am just here to help, and that I'm wanting to win. So conversationally, but even in the updates that go out, please do quarterly updates. Those are I read every single one of them. But those opportunities of what you're looking for, who you would like to meet, I think that's really helpful.
Carson?
Yeah, to piggyback on that, setting expectations up front is super, super important, both for the entrepreneur as well as for the investor, just to understand what that looks like beyond the check. And like really turn that into something that's structured, right? If it's something where you're going to be an advisor for that startup, put time on the calendar, put it on the same date every month, and have it, here's an hour, it's happening on the second Thursday in the afternoon every month, and set time aside, and you're going to connect then, and then it happens. Not to say that you need to be spending time with with companies that you're investing on a monthly basis, but just one example of setting expectation up front so that everybody knows like when and where and how that communication is happening. And then you can prep for it and actually provide more value to the entrepreneur as an advisor if you're doing that as part of your investment.
And weren't you saying you put a standing calendar invite on and founders can either show up or not show up?
Yes, but it'd be great if they let me know. No.
Yeah.
No, so in that scenario, and I do this with a few of the companies that I've invested in, it's up to them the week before to let me know if they want to keep that meeting or not. And if they don't want to keep it, that's fine. It's there for them, not for me. And if they do, just a heads up on what's top of mind, what are the challenges that you're facing, and that gives me an opportunity to organize my thoughts, possibly put some things together so that when we do get together for that hour the next week, I'm actually bringing like real tangible value and not just shooting kind of off the hip with what I'm feeling that day.
Makes sense. All right, we have 5 minutes left. You all have sat on both sides of the table. Would you prefer being an investor or a founder, and why? We'll start with Casey.
I can't choose both.
Nope.
Well, right now I'm staying founder primarily, so I guess that answers the question, because I love how my business continues to let me grow and be an entrepreneur and be challenged every day as it grows into the different seasons. But I know there will come a time when I exit and we'll spend time as an investor. That will be fun.
Yeah. Carson?
Oh, I just love building things. So
Yeah.
I just can't get away from it as hard as I try. And there's so many pieces of that. It's like, can I create something that's like needed and of value, and working with a team to accomplish that? And just the entire startup journey, I love every piece of it. So
Yeah, that makes sense. And it seems like you have a really good community around you in your startups, and like those relationships really.
Yeah, that's the biggest piece, right? Is if you're going to be spending all of this time with people going through some really challenging issues and problems, do it with people that you actually enjoy spending time with, and and respect and work well together.
Yeah, totally. Derek?
Well, shortly after the Carrot Health exit, I was, pure investor for a while, and apparently jumped right back into the founder seat. So I guess that's where I'm more comfortable. I do tend to live in the weeds a bit more than fly in the stratosphere. I like building a team. I like building a product. There's frustrations, but I think I really enjoy the complexity and being in the middle of it all that the founder experiences. I always feel a little bit left out as an investor, seeing all the awesome and like reading the quarterly updates, going, "Wow, that's pretty cool. Cool, yeah, go team." So I think founders where I'm at.
Awesome. Okay, and now knowing that the bar is about to open, unfiltered situation, not in a professional relationship with this individual. As an investor, what is one piece of advice you would give a founder? And then we'll flip it. Carson. And this is not a professional, this is like if you're having drinks at a bar.
Okay, so I'm talking to a founder about...
As an investor.
I would encourage the founder to, especially like early on, just kind of keep it simple. I think that lots of times we just overcomplicate things when it comes to investment. And especially early on, the more simple you can make it, then you're not stepping on your toes in the future. So I guess that would be the advice I'd give.
Casey?
The advice I would give to an investor looking at a founder would be, do they have what it takes? Like, do they have the fortitude? Are they resilient? Are they all in? Do you trust this person to be there in 10 years, 20 years? And hopefully it's not that long, but that's the mentality. Do they have what it takes to get through those trenches?
Derek?
Well, in simple, business is easy, people are hard. Relationships are what are going to bring you down. It's not your business. It's not your business idea. The right team is going to pivot and make a new idea work. But if the relationships in your team are bad, you are going to find a way to fail on the best idea.
All right, let's flip it. We got 30 seconds, so one word. Flip it. As a founder talking to an investor, one word, what would you be your unfiltered advice, Jared? One word. 10 seconds.
Hands off.
3, 2, 1. Carson?
Alignment.
Alignment. No words.
Your need for an exit doesn't make it happen.
Lots of words. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. It's been so nice talking to you. I really appreciate your time.